So we're back for another interview. This week we have Mizer, the #1 player on the Earth 2 leaderboard. Mizer, if you would like to introduce yourself and give us a little bit about a little of your background in Earth 2.
Hey, well, so like basically said, I'm Mizer. I've started on Earth 2 in January of 2021. So a little over a year and a half ago, or around a year and a half. And basically very early on, I went in like everyone else does, bought some things in my city, bought the restaurant that I own. I'm a restaurant owner outside of Earth 2. And I figured maybe there's some trading to be done here, which I started doing. And I sort of traded myself up all the way from the $200-ish that I put in, all the way up to where I am now on the leaderboards with over 600,000 credits spent on trades.
So is $200 the total that you've put in?
The first bunch was a deposit of, I've looked it back on the deposits that you can see within transactions. Yeah. The first two deposits were $60 and $70.
Okay.
And then I had some leftovers in my PayPal, so I did another $70 later, but that was when it was already trading positive.
Yeah.
So I think that last bit wouldn't even have mattered, but in total I deposited only $200. Yeah.
That's even more impressive. I'm blown away by that, to be honest. I didn't realize it was so little you'd put in.
Yeah, it was. There was extra costs coming later as I scaled up the trading, that I paid for certain services to get certain data. I professionalized my setup, upgraded stuff, which I do think sort of add to the cost of being able to trade the way I do. But in total, the investment in Earth 2 itself was $200.
And all the upgrades and stuff you've done have obviously paid off as well, though.
Yeah, they definitely did. Yeah, and I went on some very nice holidays last year.
But paid for by F2, is that?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Also, look, I work hard in the restaurant as well, and there's a wage from there. So sometimes the income streams cross. But yeah, I did some profit taking, and I felt like you need some free time after all the hard work, so I took that. Yeah,
that's brilliant. It's nice to hear those stories. I'm hoping more will come as F2 develops.
I have high hopes for it. There's a lot to come, I feel.
Is there anything you want to say about your Metamaxis as well? Do you want to add that to your introduction?
Of course, yeah. The Metamaxis is something that is more recent. I got approached by a very good team that were looking to start a data analytics program in the metaverse, or on the metaverse, basically. They saw Earth 2. They thought it was sort of a unique concept with the real estate property, as their background is in actual real estate, like doing property reports for villas in the luxury real estate.
Oh, brilliant.
So they had some know-how of how to evaluate real estate and what data is relevant. They approached me initially just for like an information trade-off. I could use their product. They got some information about Earth 2 from me. But the collaboration went so well that I stepped in as a full team member over time, and I'm now working on that full time as besides the trading and the restaurant. And we've launched 2 weeks ago. We went live with Metamaxis, officially still in the alpha state, and we crossed the 50 active users last week.
Brilliant.
So that is without any official promotion, just word to mouth within the Earth 2 community.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all really exciting. It's still in its infancy. We're building, growing every day, learning every day. But it's a super exciting project that we're focusing on Earth 2 fully for now, but we'll cross over into many yeah.
So what exactly is your position there? Have you bought into it, or are you literally just working for them? Or
no, I do have a share within the company. And basically my official title is Director of UX, so the user experience and community relations, which for now is focused on Earth 2, where my expertise lies, where I know a lot of people, and that will later on grow towards the community relations with other platforms, with the communities in there, and how they would want to see their community portrayed on the analytics level.
So you're essentially the face of Metamaxis then?
Together with our CEO, Fabrizio, we did a live stream, or I did a live stream a couple of days ago. But the next one, which will be in about 2 weeks from now, 2.5, will be together with him, because he'll do some more explaining on like the for me, it's very easy to explain the product and how to use it as an active trader. That's an easy to show use case.
Yeah.
And in relation to Earth 2 specifically, and he in our next live stream will be able to tell a lot more about the sort of the roadmap of the company, how we came to be, what the bigger picture is of how we perceive things, and how certain things are arranged. So that's the next step. So he'll be the other face of the company. Community relations is my branch. The CEO jobs or tasks are his. Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that one then. Right. I'm going to move on to my questions now, unless you've got more to add.
Yeah. No, sure. Go ahead.
So how did you first discover Earth 2?
Funny story. I ran into it, I think, by an Instagram ad.
Okay.
Because I was already involved in some crypto and metaverses in general, and I got the ad, but I clicked it and didn't buy anything. I saved it to a bookmark folder. I looked that up later. It was on the 6th of January, I believe, 6th or 7th. And then a couple days later, there was a news article in a regional news blog here in the Netherlands, which is from my province within the Netherlands and has a couple 100,000 active readers, I think, so quite, well, relatively large. Yeah. And they did an article of our city being bought up really quick in this metaverse. Now I'm reading the article and I see some screenshots and I'm thinking, like, this looks familiar. Go back to the bookmark, see that I had looked into it, and decided to put $60 or $70 into it.
The money
by the time I remember thinking, like, whoa, the Netherlands is already so expensive. It was like maybe for class 2, maybe it was already in class 3. It was already a couple dollars per tile, and I was like, oh, well, I'm buying my restaurant and I'm buying some bits in there in the city. Oh, football stadium already sold out. The big central area already sold out. And I was like, oh, this is massive. So I started to look into it. First $60 went to waste. Obviously, like most people do, I bought stuff that had no resale value. At least by now they would have, but back then, no. Yeah. So I think 2 days later, when I had some days I had worked in the restaurant, I came back, had a day off. I thought, I have a bit of money left on my PayPal. I'll put it in and see if I can trade. So yeah, that's how I got to know Earth 2, basically.
Yeah, I'm surprised so much was sold back in January, to be honest. I didn't get until March, and I always kind of thought the January guys were the ones that were able to grab whatever they wanted, kind of thing. But I'm guessing that was the November and December guys instead.
Yeah, it's in the funny thing was that early on, I don't like the market filters and pages as they are now. Like, there's too little to filter out. Back then, everything was on one page. You couldn't even select by country or class. Everything was on one page, and you sort of had to click through. And you couldn't also select by tile value. It was one big mess. I think maybe there was one or two filters, but they weren't working correctly. It was a huge mess. So what I would do, I would, on my time off, sit there and go through page after page, clicking these, because you could see the price of a certain thing, clicking these things within my price range and considering, like, oh, this is 30% discounted from new land value. It's class 1. I'll get that because we're now in class 2 in that country. See if I can sell it for 30 cents more. It was literally about those small amounts back then. And there was I think the highest trading volumes I ever did was within those first months, January to March, but the margins were also the smallest. So it's a bit of a weird position. Like, it gave me the initial growth, but I wouldn't be able to trade at those very low margins now. Like, that it would be too time consuming to be worth the effort. Yeah.
But that was your kind of learning period as well, though, wasn't it? To tell you learn the market and what works and what doesn't and stuff. So it paid off for you eventually anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And very early on, there was already Earth2.market, which still exists, but it's less active now, which already had more filters than the webpage. So the people who jumped on there early, and back then we would refresh it like every 30 seconds to see if they got new deals.
Is Earth2.market fully working again? Because I know it was kind of still showing a lot of
I think the refresh rate is super low.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Earth2.market has I think a super low refresh rate currently because it costs the owner McGrady to keep that up and running with bandwidth. So I think he put a very low refresh rate on it, and therefore it sometimes isn't showing what you're trying to show. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense, because the last few times I tried to use it, like, all of the properties I was interested in had already been sold. They were no longer on the market, but they were shown on F2 market. But if the refresh rate is down, that makes sense as to why.
I think that's the reason. Yeah.
Right. question 2. What impact, if any, has Earth 2 had on your life?
Yeah, well, huge in my case. I was already a little bit into investing. I was already trading crypto in semi-low volumes. It's a thing I like to do. But for me, at that point, it was more of a sort of a free time thing that is sort of a hobby, basically. I'm a restaurant owner, which I was already back then. So I was super busy. That takes up more than 40 hours a week. But when Earth 2 came, this was obviously at the start of the pandemic as well, or at least that, not the start, but we're in the midst of it, and it was coming out of a winter, so the restrictions were quite high. So my workload in the restaurant was lower. Yeah. So I was able to do like 10 hours a day when my girlfriend was working, etc. 10 hours a day on just sitting by my desk and trading. And on the other hand, had my phone at the ready for someone called for questions about the restaurant. So I just had the time at hand to sort of dip into this real deep and sort of build that base where when the restaurant picked up and summer came, restrictions got lifted, that I had the base to sort of more lean towards swing trading on the days that I was working and not be as active to spot the deals. But the impact was obviously great. Like it's still a full-time job. I'm essentially having 2 full-time jobs still as is. Doesn't mean I don't have time for friends and family. It's not that impactful because 80 hours out of the week still leaves you after 6 hours of sleep a day with a big chunk of free time to spend with your family. I just got way more efficient with my time. If I look at my calendar at the end of the week, because I'm very organized with the calendar, I always, even in hindsight, fill in the things I did so I can sort of look back through my calendar when I did what. I'm always amazed like how efficient the time can be spent if you're willing to set your mind to it. Yeah.
That does sound amazing, to be fair. Do you even put like your social stuff into your calendar to look back and see what you've done during the week and stuff as well?
Yeah. I'm going to play a game of golf with a friend this afternoon. It's in there, and I'll adjust the times precisely to when I arrive back home once I'm home.
Even what time this interview finishes and stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's really good. I thought my girlfriend was organized, but that's a whole new level.
It's also something that it's relatively short time ago that I started doing it this detailed, because sometimes I was looking back at things and like I was in a meeting for Metamaxis and we were discussing things and I'm like, oh, we discussed this on I don't know. And sometimes these time frames are more important than you think, because if it's, for instance, on a feedback thing where the login was having an error, you want to know how long it has been going on for. Yes. So obviously we have feedback logs for that, and there's a whole other system essentially to do that. But just for me to go back to my calendar and see like, oh, on Wednesday we spoke. It's now Friday. That was 2 days ago. It gave me a sort of a relaxed and sort of a calm to my week, because I can just look back and like, oh, last week that whatever I was doing cost me 2 hours. So I know if I want to plan it in again this week, I should count on it taking 2 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect. Next, can you tell us a little bit about your megacity Cryptopolis, the goals and aims, and how it came about?
Yeah, sure. First of all, it's not my city. I'm one of the founders. Okay. And by far not the most inspirational one in a way, because there's a couple of people there who do a lot more work at it. Like Klex is amazing. He made the whole treasure hunt that we did a month ago or so. But Cryptopolis is basically, we had this group very early on, like over a year ago, with a lot of the old school Earth 2 members that were either on the leaderboards or had other big roles within the community. And this was a group created very early on just to chat with like-minded people without having to do that in Earth 2 general and being interrupted by trolls and whatnot.
Which happens often.
Which happens a lot, unfortunately. But the fun thing there was that we sort of discovered very early on, like a lot of the people in that group, the big names have their own mega cities. But we discovered very early on that we have sort of this drive together, or at least a big part of the group, to maybe do something together. And I think actually a player that is now long gone in forgotten times, the Joker, was one of the people who sort of suggested it back then. He came in and he left as quickly as he came, but he sort of suggested it, and we sort of, in a moment of hype, went for it. Went really fast, sort of exploded, 40K tiles sold in the city within, I think, 24 hours. And then we started to actually build on it and think like, okay, but we have to structure this. We have to make a web page, a Discord, a Twitter, and like all these things. And that sort of grew. And there's now a small team of dedicated people on almost a daily basis being in contact about it. Like, hey, we should do something again to not lose traction. What are the plans? For instance, we had a whole new region planned within the city. And we were talking about it, I think, the other week. But it required us to build a road grid. Then the vlog came out a couple of days ago from Earth 2, and it sort of showed you don't need road grids.
Yeah.
Like there might still be a use to
Although
them.
they have said that as cities develop, there's going to be more types of roads as well. So I'm hoping that the road layouts that we've added are still going to have some kind of uses, maybe as highways or something.
Yeah, there's going to be either you can make like nice greenery for it, you can use it as areas that the sort of city governance is controlled on. There's many ways of sort of making that space useful, we figured already. But for the new part that we're doing, we're now considering, because we wanted to build a part of the city really relating to the ecosim and making sort of an area where everyone can place their ecosim buildings that they want connected to the city without having like a lot of industrial things in the city center in the governance area.
That makes sense.
So that's something we're working on that's soon going to be announced and released for Cryptopolis, but that already changed just by a small bit of information from Earth 2. So it's super early, but it's a cool and fun ride to have a project like this early and to see where we can take it.
It's good that you can evolve with the information that you're getting as well, though.
Yeah, definitely. That's the good thing about, like I said, it's not my city. That's a good thing about having the whole team of founders behind it, and some more active than others. But even the people who maybe we haven't heard for like a month or 2 or 3 about Cryptopolis, they suddenly pop into the founders chat and they give an idea about something, or they say like, hey, this information is outdated. That's on the Discord. We should change that, and that makes it for that sort of keeps the spark alive. It keeps it going.
It's always good to have people to bounce ideas off and stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right. Let's see where we're up to. Right. Question 4. If you could give just one bit of advice to new Earth 2 players, what would that be? Buy
off the marketplace and not new tiles. Yeah. Obviously, if you have something very specific that you like to own, I think the biggest, I see so many, especially now with tier 2 tiles, they look a lot more affordable to the new players, but the actual value increase once the market picks up again is bigger in buying the heavily discounted tiles now. Like in a lot of country, class 1 even goes up to 60% in discount compared to its new land value. When the market picks up again, those are the first ones to rise in value and price.
Plus, if you get in the tier 1 properties, you're not going to have the upgrade costs associated with tier 2 as
exactly. Well.
Yeah. Which I'm worried about, because I think it's about 70-80% of my portfolio is all T2. I only had 5,000 T1 when T2 launched.
Yeah, but there's obviously also I'm still in doubt, like maybe in the end those turn out to be the winners, because for the value that you bought them for, there's still quite a lot possible on them.
Yeah.
But we all have to see that. Like we don't know yet what the ads are going to be like and how relevant their revenue is going to be. The land income tax, we already know by now that was in the very early days that spiked, but nowadays it's even if more people would come in, it's there's a few cents in there, but it's not going to be the big money. Yep. Jewels and resources, how much more or less that is going to be on tier 2 over the long run, we also still have to see. So,
I'm sure they mentioned that the buildings are going to be capped by the tier as well, though. I'm sure it was limited to what we're going to be able to build or something. That was my main concern when it comes to that, especially when building a mega city. Yeah.
It is likely that there is going to be limits to it, what you can build on tier 2. Maybe it's built limited on the layer, like there's already announced that there's different layers and tiers of buildings that tier 2 can only hold them till a certain tier, and that you have to upgrade specific properties to grow on that. But yeah, it's an intricate system, at least the sounds of it. But definitely, I think the like come back to your question. The biggest tip is to buy off the market and to use the tools at hand. So don't just jump in and try to figure it all out yourself. Use the community, use the websites related to Earth 2, be it Metamaxis or Earth 2 Market or any of the other Earth 2 stats, Earth 2 tools. There's so many things. And and the buying experience is part of it. So when you first get into Earth 2, you're gonna like, oh, I want some tiles, I go buy this, that. Doing the couple of hours of research is gonna pay off in the end. So yeah, patience is virtue, I guess.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that one. I mean, I think 99.99% of us have got tiles that we bought initially, which have got no relevance to our new game plans. And if we had sat down and done a couple of hours research, like what you've just said, then we could have probably avoided that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Right. So moving on to question 5. Well, we've already kind of covered this one briefly anyway. This one was just, I've noticed you're working on something new, Metamaxis. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Is there anything else you want to add to the Metamaxis?
Well, there's been some people that were concerned with pricing levels and stuff. The only thing I can add to Metamaxis that is really important is that there's a 14-day trial without commitment. So I always suggest people to try it out. It's such a heavy work in progress, and so much time went into it to give the Earth 2 players a better experience, that I feel like you're cutting yourself short for not trying it. Yeah. So that I think is important to know. Yeah.
What do you see as your target audience for Metamaxis as well? Are you going for the kind of hardcore landowners, or do you see it as a tool kind of for everyone?
I think it will be a tool for everyone. We have quite an extensive roadmap. Some things are a bit further down the road, like the free version. It's not going to be here next week or the week after, but there's going to be a free version that obviously is limited. But also things like we'll have achievements in there, so it's easier to track if you have certain goals, to sort of track them via achievements. So this can be if you have completed all the countries in Europe, in Asia, or in how many countries you own, which quite a lot of people go after. And I think our target audience is anyone excited about the metaverse, and for now Earth 2, as that is our main focus at the time being. But it has a value to everyone. Like, obviously, if you only put $50 in and you're holding and you're not gonna extend on that, it might not be for you. Maybe later on the free version. But anyone that is even slightly active, who swing trades, who still buys in a bit monthly, I think it adds a value to them, because I can notice it myself. I'm a bit more active trading again since 2 weeks. Using it, I could spot the movement of floor prices a lot better. So there's, yeah, I think the audience is broad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely.
There's something for everyone eventually. If there's not something there now, there eventually will be.
100%. And we're always open to feedback. So that's, I think, very important.
Brilliant. Right, we're going on to my last question. And after this one, we're going to move on to questions from the community.
Cool.
Right. So going forward, where do you see yourself within Earth 2? Is this purely an investment for you, or are you going to be playing the game too?
Oh, I'm definitely going to be playing the game. When I ran into it, I was really drawn in because of the whole concept, like a metaverse, which is something we all saw in Ready Player One, and that is already a cool idea. But then basing it on real geolocations, I immediately, on the first day that I logged in, thought of things like Pokemon Go or Ingress, like the apps that do AR, and I thought, like, well, what if I build a building here and I could just on my phone look like, oh yeah, there's some cool building here in the metaverse. Obviously I knew that was years down the road, but I do believe in the whole concept of it, and also of the potential of, once it's there, earning within the metaverse, like it being its own economy. So it is an investment in one side, and like I've said earlier on, I've done plenty of profit taking for it to be healthy as an investment, and to take the profits as they come. But my main goal has always been to also grow my profile, and over every time span, let's say every 3 months, it shouldn't be lower than before. Like, on the moment I have some sales, it can drop a bit, but then I restock. I only sort of cash out what is actual profits, and then leave some profits in as well. That's always the goal.
That sounds good.
So yeah, definitely staying here for the long ride.
Yeah, and tell the passion there, to be fair. Like,
yeah,
I had exactly the same thought as you, like with Pokemon Go and stuff like that, though. And as you see it, we're kind of not there yet, but then we wouldn't have the opportunities that we're getting now to be there at, like, when it's starting.
Exactly.
If it was already established, there'd be no way in hell people like you and I would be able to make profit from that. It would be all business profits of people that had been there from the start.
And there's also the thing that even if Earth 2 is not going to be the metaverse that progresses the furthest down the road, or is the one that is going to be the main metaverse a billion people are going to be using, what I think is really interesting is that we get this experience now, And wherever the metaverse ends up going, the experience that we get from being a part of a metaverse community is not going to be taken away from us.
Yes.
Like being there in the building steps of the metaverse, it's a very strong sort of experience that we're all getting from being part of this, that we'll take with us to any other metaverse that comes along that maybe surpasses it, if it does. Like I still believe heavily in the vision of Earth 2. But yeah.
I think that's already happened for a lot of guys, to be honest. Like, I wasn't in any other metaverse project, and I didn't really hold any crypto and stuff until I discovered Earth 2. And now I've got stuff in like VV and a little bit of sandbox sand and stuff like that. So it's already kind of opened doors for us to diversify just from finding out about Earth 2 and how it works and stuff anyway. And I know there's loads of guys who've got massive plot holdings in other metaverses who first discovered the metaverse from Earth 2. So it's already doing that to a degree. Right. We're going to move on to the community questions now. Awesome. And the first one is from Resin, and it says, when Cryptopolis and Mizer start their own guild?
It has been asked before, maybe even by Resin, who knows. I think it's, for me at least, in my view of how things are going to be portrayed later on, it's a bit too early to do that. So there's already communities forming. Like I said, we have this community with some of the early investors and which has a couple of leaderboard players on it, a couple of other people from the community. And that is not nearly a guild, because they all have their own projects. They're in Dorkslayer, they're in here, they're everywhere. Yeah. However, that does sort of make a bond. So if later on it turns out that you really have to work together to make certain things happen, be it a megacity, be it a PvP, be it for the gathering of resources or the transport of it, then I think that'll eventually come. I'm not sure if I'm then the man to lead such a thing like a guild, but I'd definitely be taking part in that, because the community is in the end what I think makes the whole metaverse concept, but Earth 2 as well, the strongest.
Yeah, it seems something that Shane is very keen on as well, kind of collaboration and the community working together and stuff. Yeah. So I have no doubt it's going to be a kind of big element of Earth 2. Yeah,
and my very early social interactions were with SHP, actually, because I joined the official Discord back then in January of 2021. But I think my earliest, somewhat of deeper conversations about Earth 2 and megacities was in SHP, and they were building, I think, Avalon, their megacity. Yeah. Very, very early on, was one of the first 5 bigger projects. And that was one of the first places I sort of started also to trade on, like buy some plots of someone who wanted to cash something out to buy something else, sell it on to new SHP members, and that kind of thing. And I had a lot of interactions with that community early on. So I do really see that there will be a place for guilds and communities like that to exist. Although it's so early that to keep them alive through these times is super hard.
It's exactly why I haven't joined a guild myself yet. I don't want to kind of commit to something that might have a very different vision of what they want to do to what I want to do. I want to see what elements we get in the game and how guilds interact with that. So yeah, I completely understand what you mean when you're saying that. Right, next one to Earth 2 Viking. Have you ever looked back at any sold properties and thought, fuck, I shouldn't have sold that?
Yeah, many times. I've in the very early days when I first started to have enough volume and trades to buy bigger properties, I've had multiple 750 tile properties in Seoul, for instance, because Korea's price rose later on. So I remember selling 2 750 tile plots in the center of Seoul, or close to the center, class 1, for like 1,500 each.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
And I don't regret it, because I bought them for like 1,200, made a super good margin. It was very excited for me at the time being. But I remember like 2 weeks later, the prices in South Korea already spiking. So the reason why those always pop up in my mind when people ask this is that it was so close together that if I wouldn't have sold them on the day that I sold them, I probably would have been able to up the price in time, seeing the rise of the tile value, and get a lot more for it.
What sort of price do you think you would have got had you held it for a few weeks?
If it was for a few weeks, I could have probably nearly doubled it, because there was such a rise at that time from South Korean players coming in that also they were buying up any class 1 below new land value. So probably holding it on for just 2 or 3 weeks would have given me 3,000 instead of 1,600. Yeah. So yeah, that's quite a huge difference. But
Suppose-
still, like I said, it's not a real regret because I made a very good margin on them, and it allowed me to then, with that margin, trade on over the coming weeks.
Yeah, kept
So
the portfolio going.
yeah.
Everything's easier in hindsight anyway, though, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Right, now we've got a set of 3 questions from JT Makes Money. I'll start with the first one. What was your original goal and plan when investing in Earth 2, and was flipping properties part of that?
So yeah, like discussed earlier, it was I started flipping very early on, like a couple days in. But when I first came across it, it just the metaverse itself piqued my interest, and especially that early on when the margins on me flipping were so small, and I did so many trades to just get a couple dollars extra. The main goal was to just grow the account because there was a couple of people already doing this, trading tiles. Pookie, who's an active community member and always in chat, was one of the people I spoke to back then a lot. And we were both doing it with the reason as both an investment, but also very much to grow the tile count that we had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a part of my idea of how Earth 2 works from the start. But yeah, combined with the whole belief in the metaverse thing.
Sounds good. Right. What do you view as the biggest strength and biggest weaknesses of Earth 2 currently?
Well, the biggest strength is for sure the vision, and I think the passion people like Shane have. But it's a double-edged sword, because I think that sort of passion is at the same time their sort of weakness or downfall in some periods of time, even where the commitment and the ideas are so big that they can't put them in effect.
It's hard to get others to understand.
Yeah, it's that, but also to make real what they plan. So for instance, things are delayed very often. Sometimes they're so busy that they sort of forget to communicate with the community. It's been better over the past months with the vlogs and Shane jumping in chat and doing his videos. But that passion also has its downside when it comes to the way they feel attacked when something is not portrayed the way they like it. And I think it's good to stand up for what you believe in. But there's also a sense of how you run a business where I don't think from a business perspective, if I would to run Earth 2, I would keep sort of professional about it, and I would speak up against them in the way that prove them wrong, because proof is in the pudding. But like I would just make sure by presenting videos like they did last week with actual mapping and stuff, I would prove them wrong, but I wouldn't go and bet against them or give them challenges to get more views, because it sort of played into the hand of what those drama queens wanted.
Yeah, exactly. It's giving them extra attention. Yeah, kind of you'd want to keep the emotion out of it and just kind of prove it with what you did. Yeah.
And then you can, of course, say, like many people have said, that we couldn't do X or Y without naming them, and then show the proof of why they were wrong. I think that's professional enough while standing up for your team and sort of speaking out against what was said, but not make it personal and keep the emotions out. Although, like I said, it's a double-edged situation, because it shows how passionate Shane and his team is about the project and their vision. So I definitely think that it comes from a great place, but sometimes tone it down.
that makes sense, and I completely agree with what you're saying, to be honest. I get it. I guess kind of when it's your entire world, you kind of maybe get caught up in things, and it's easy to get carried away and stuff, especially when you live and breathe Earth 2.
Yeah.
Right, but moving on to JT's third question. What type of player will you be in Earth 2? No, wait there. What am I doing? Oh, yeah, what type of player will you be in Earth 2? And does Eco Sim seem exciting or too complex? So it's kind of 2 questions in one, this third one, actually.
I think I'll be an ecosim player, and for me, well, that's why I love Metamaxis as much. I like the very extensive data and dealing with that, so I don't think it will be too intricate for me. And I do think I like it if it becomes so sort of complex that you can't deal with all of it, because that means that you have to work together to make things work. So for instance, the transportation is a whole different section of how it works compared to the rest of the economy and producing the goods. I think that would be perfect. I've played a video game called EVE Online for over 10 years, and it has the most intricate and complex economy of any game, at least to my knowledge. There even has been studies by universities studying the economy in EVE Online, because it has so many parts. You have to mine the resources, build it, and often within the building process, there's different people taking into account. Then you have to transport it to the market hub, sell it, etc. And I think that's going to be the strength of Earth 2 as well, if they make it complex enough so that you can't do it all, at least not on a big scale. And so you have to focus on your own niche. That would, I think, only be better. And that's the part of the game I look forward to the most. Like running around with my avatar, I will do it, and it sounds like fun. But I like building on things and progressing and becoming bigger.
It certainly sounds like it plays into your strengths as well with your organization and stuff that we were talking about earlier. It does sound like it's the sort of thing that would appeal to yourself.
Yeah,
and with all the experience there from Eve as well, that sounds amazing. Well, how you describe Eve there, it literally sounds like exactly what we know about the Earth 2 ecosystem as well. So I can definitely see that comparison.
Yeah.
Right, next one to Peck Holdens, and he's asking, where do you stand with cash in and out of the game? And he's asking if you're on a free roll. I think we all know you're on a free roll though, but where do you stand with cash in and out of it?
I don't like to call out exact numbers on this.
Yeah, understandable.
For both private reasons and also because, like I said, there has been more investments into it that I can't literally calculate. Yeah. But I have cash out because I came from such a low place of $200. I've been cash out a couple $1,000% over. So I've at least 100x, I think. At least 100x on just profit taking alone, and then there's the profile growth. Maybe it's 500x. I don't even know by head, but yeah, I'm on a free roll for sure. Even with everything I reinvested, I always made sure that everything I cash out at Earth 2 part goes back into either enhancing my performance on what I do or being more time efficient on it, and part goes into other investments to sort of broaden the horizon. And then part of it is money to enjoy, because the hard work has to be enjoyed with some relaxation times.
Without a doubt, yeah. You don't want it to kind of become a chore doing it, otherwise you'll just not want to do it anymore.
No, exactly.
So where does your portfolio stand at the minute? How many tiles are you sitting on and stuff?
I have it open. It's 42,976 tiles at the moment.
Is that mostly tier 1 as well?
Yeah, that is at least, I think, 60% tier 1. I can actually very precisely say that on my Metamaxis page.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I'm quickly logging in. Go to portfolio. So here's the summary. Yeah, tier 1 is about half of it, actually.
Okay.
About half at this point. And that's probably because of the holdings in both Cryptopolis and from still a lot of big 750s. So especially tile count wise, it's I can see the exact percentage. It's 45.2% tier 2. And that is because when tier 2 was launched, I only bought 750. So in the tile count, that stacks up. When it comes to the value count, the tier 2 is a lot less. It's 22%.
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah. And I kind of get why you're holding your T2s and stuff as well. As you see, you mentioned Cryptopolis. The majority of my T2 holdings is Shun City as well. Kind of when you're building something out, you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of the 750s, for instance, are sometimes connected to landmarks I own. Okay. So once the landmark get bought, I'll put up the surrounding tiles for sale to that owner for a good deal. Yeah. There's stuff like that in there as well. So they add up to the tile count and value, but they're actually sort of linked to something else I have in mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, that's really good planning.
Yeah.
Right. So next question is from Ferris. And he's asking, I think we might have covered this one already as well, actually, but he's asking what external tools you use to analyze the marketplace and find good deals.
Yeah, that is Earth through the market and its sniping tool as well, which is a paid service.
Yeah. I think they made it free, didn't they?
Yeah. I think if you pay for it, I've a long time ago bought this sort of lifetime subscription, so I'm not 100% sure on how it runs now. Also, I don't use it as much as I used to because it's very time consuming. You have to sit there with your screen open. But I sometimes have it open still. And then now Metamaxis, because of being a part of making the product, I make sure to get the filters in a way that I like to search for things. But I even quite often still go through the Earth-2 pages itself. Like it's, I think it's a combination of things that works well. Because for instance, with Metamaxis, we still depend on the refresh rate that we chose, which for now is a daily refresh. And on the marketplace, we aim to go to at least 4 times a day on the short term, and then expand from there depending on the scaling and the bandwidth, etc.
Is there any limits on what Earth-2 lets you pull or not?
Yes and no. Like if you use enough proxies and you come in from enough IP addresses, they sort of can't. But they seem to be quite cool with third parties extracting, scraping data from profiles and from almost from everything that is public anyway. Like anyone can go to my profile and see what properties I have. So me scraping that and putting it in a database is nothing strange or illegal. We do it in a way with Metamaxis. That's why for now everything is on a daily snapshot and refreshed on a daily basis to not influence the servers by any means. We don't want it to lag out. We don't want to pull the data all in a very short amount of time, you know, being an annoyance. So that's where we where we level out. Also, we are in sort of a contact with Earth-2 about it. We did an official request to see if there would be options to a collaboration.
Okay.
Maybe if they have an API already that needs testing, that we can test it out for them, pull data through there, make it less server intensive. But yeah, that's still very early on. We've sent the official request. They are taking it into consideration at this moment, and will get back to us. But yeah, we know how things with Earth-2 roll. Everything takes a little time.
Yeah. Shane did say he was wanting to test the service soon as well, with the countdown to a new country. So if he's wanting to test it with that, I'm sure he would do with hopefully for you guys with the APIs and stuff as well.
But that's a very good example. He said a timer will go up this weekend, and that's now 2 weeks ago. So when they tell us we're reviewing your collaboration, I'm not assuming to get an answer today or tomorrow. But oh well.
It's kind of that's the good and bad thing about being this early. We've got to kind of put up with that, but that's where the opportunity comes from as well. So exactly. They should just stop telling us dates, to be honest.
I've said that a long time ago. Yeah.
Right. So next, a question from CFO, and he's asked me to ask about price predictions for Essence and your best and worst flip. So 2 questions in one again.
All right, price prediction from Essence. This is such a put your finger in the wind and guess where it's blowing. I do have a sort of what I feel is realistic, which is between 10 cents to $1 on the first week. And the range here is quite big because it's 10 times over the minimum to the maximum. But it is because of the limited supply that we have, and there's a big dependence factor there. But there's also, what exchange are we going to list on? Because would we list on Binance, the volumes you're immediately going to be asked for is so much bigger, and the prices will spike so much faster towards that $1 or above than compared to when you're on a small DEX.
Yeah, because it's just so much more accessible than something like PancakeSwap, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then PancakeSwap still even is quite a big one that I would have high hopes for. But there could be so many ways they could go. If they go into one of the smaller ones on the Polygon chain, then yeah, the eyes on that is just a lot less. Then it depends on the marketing they do, which I was excited about in the last vlog they did, where they said like, we're going to release more in the pre-launch to Essence to promote the Essence sales. Yeah. So that means they have a plan for it to also promote the launch of Essence. So having plans is a good sign. And then obviously how the market is doing by that time, how it's promoted, how many players are willing to sell, so supply and demand. But I think worst case it's about 10 cents because of how limited the supply is and how loyal the current holders are. I think at below 20 cents a lot of us would be buying. Hence I don't see it go lower than 10 cents on the short term, and I wouldn't see it go higher than $1 unless it's like listed on Binance with very good promotion, because you'd require over 100 million in initial market cap, even more actually, to even get there. And for such a young product, I don't think that in the current crypto market that's realistic.
No, I think that's a fair enough of evaluation. Actually, while we're on that subject, have you seen the new Essence staking for validation? Do you think that's going to have any impact?
I was just reading about it before our call. So I think that has a huge impact on it, because that's the first use case showing of the Essence token. And one that is known to the crypto community. So crypto people coming in, buying Essence to be able to stake it and increase their Essence count could be quite a big thing. Like you could invest, let's say $1,000 in Essence, whatever the price may be, and invest that on validating 750 tau plots with a maximum amount at a time, and grow your Essence count that way. So especially if the crypto market is not at a peak, but sort of at a low point where we are now, there could be a lot of interest from people jumping in to increase their Essence for when the price goes up. So I definitely think that plays a role. Yeah.
So fingers crossed we're not going to get the launch of Essence too long after the resource validation goes live, because we don't want too many of them to have been validated when it goes live. Otherwise, it will kind of release more Essence.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, where we're at. And the second part of that question was your worst and best flips.
My best is probably one of the USA properties, because they have such a high value per tile that if you get a 30% margin on them, automatically the value is very high. So for instance, once I flipped one of the Hollywood Boulevards, and I think I bought it for 5,000 and sold it like within a week for 7,000. Yeah. So even though I have done flips with a margin of a couple 100%, that was such a immediate chunk of money coming back. So, and there's multiple examples like this, but it must be something like that. My worst flip must have been, I've not often sold at a loss, like I almost never do it, but there has been a period of time where I just saw the prices decline and I bought in like a big bunch of 750s from someone who was cashing out or taking profits, and I bought like 10 750 tile plots at $600 because they were selling for 700 or 800, and then the prices started dropping and I had to get rid of a couple of them to keep the volumes going. I had to sell a couple of them for 550, so at a 10% ish loss.
I wouldn't say that was too bad. Yeah.
No,
I mean, if
never
that's
really...
the worst one you've got, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I think until now, like I've not been put in the position where the big properties that I currently hold for months already, that I had to sell them. So if I come to the point where for liquidity for the liquidity's sake and for continuation of my trading, I have to sell one of the properties that I bought for 7,000 or so, and I have to sell it for 5. Yeah, that would become my worst flip. And it's not impossible. If the market goes down for months more on end, I have to go where the market goes. I can't just keep holding on to everything in my profile and not trade. So
that makes sense. I guess the best thing about it now for you, even if that does happen, you're already 100% profit anyway. So
exactly. And even if I sell something at a loss now, but that money gives me opportunities to restock and gain more than what my loss was, it's not really relevant at that point.
Yeah, exactly. No, you've done well. Right, now we're on to a question from Tipsy Sound. Do you have any best worst types of buyers and sellers?
Not really. Like every buyer and seller is a good one because they keep the market going. I do find it very annoying when people like on a daily basis spam me with sort of nonsense sales. They bought these 3 tiles in the middle of nowhere, tier 2, and they're trying to sell it to me for double the price, which there's no reason for. The market doesn't sort of allow it to be a sensible buy for me. And they keep on trying, whereas I'm sometimes even for a strange amount of money, like $1, it's probably a young guy or someone trying to make that first dollar of profit. And they think like, he doesn't care about money. He's high up the leaderboard, so he's going to buy my stuff overpriced, but that's not how it works. So I don't think there's good buyers and sellers at the point where you buy or sell. There is people who try to sell that are bad sellers because they don't manage to sell because they're asking ridiculous prices. But other than that, no, if the market is active and people are buying and selling, I don't think there's any wrongs or rights because
everybody's unique. I get that. So when you're seeing about people doing that, is that like people that are messaging you to buy stuff, or is it properties that you're bidding on and then you're getting responses to?
No, it's mostly the messages, like the bids, because you can set now the thing where you have to bid 30% of a property to place the bid. That I don't always have that turned on, but if I notice a lot of 1 cent bids and stuff, I just turn that on, decline them all, and keep it on for a while. Because some people just do it to troll, I guess, or whatnot. So that's not a hard decision there. And the DMs also, it's a thing that every now and again just happens, where I'm always helpful and nice. So I explain to them why I wouldn't take an offer. And then they, most of the time that's accepted. They see the reasoning. But there has been in the past a couple of people who then day after day come back with new properties trying to do the same thing, which is either a lack of understanding of the market or just not seeing the reasoning I'm giving, or yeah, just try harding, which is fine. I mean, try the hardest you can on anything you want to achieve, but yeah, those can be annoying.
I think that would annoy me as well, to be honest. You sound like you've got more patience than I would for that. Right. Now we have a question from Tellus, and he's asking what use cases there are for pineapple and pizza, or in a pizzeria. Sorry, use cases for pineapple in a pizzeria.
Yeah, I've spoken out against this, and it's not a popular opinion, but I do allow pineapple on pizza for sure. It's we've done it in my restaurant once or twice, but more as a meme, like because this is such a big thing anywhere you go. I'm not an Italian guy. I don't claim to have an Italian pizzeria. Obviously pizzas are Italian, but so we like to play around with the products. I have made pizzas with pineapple on them, although not the typical ham and pineapple and then don't think about it anymore. But yeah. So
what about as a personal thing then? Is it something you would ever have yourself?
No, I'm not. I'm a simple guy. I think less is more. So a pizza with cheese and a little bit of meat is good, or even without the meat. Just sauce, cheese, a good sauce with the right spices, and a little bit of good mozzarella and Parmesan cheese, and I'm a happy man.
That's my daughter's favorite as well, just a cheese pizza. If I buy pizza, if anything going, I get wrong.
Yeah.
Right, next we're on to Zeus, and he's asking, it's another similar question. He's asking if you'll sell pizzas for essence within your restaurant.
Once that becomes available and those payment systems are a thing where I can, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool to do it as well, to be fair.
I have to quickly answer someone. Someone is calling me like 4 times in a row.
No problem.
All right. Back.
So yeah, we've just covered that you would sell pizza for essence as long as the systems are in place to allow you to do it.
Yeah, definitely. We have considered this with Bitcoin and other cryptos in the past in my restaurant, but because of the prices not being instant, we couldn't do that at the time.
Yeah.
Price fluctuations and the cost of the systems, etc. It wasn't worth it back then. But we have looked at it in the past, and I like to be that little bit of techie side, even if only one customer pays with that every month. If it's not something too cost heavy on our side, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but you kind of need the stability in place, don't you? I understand that.
Yeah.
Right, now we're on to a question from Morby, and he's asking, what has given you the confidence in Earth 2 to feel comfortable with devoting the considerable resources needed to create Metamaxis? I'm guessing he's under the impression that Metamaxis is just your baby, though.
Yeah, no, it's not. So I'm just part of the team. They already had a lot of the back end, because they came from the real estate. A lot of the way they progressed data was already there. So yeah, the question indeed then loses a little bit of its relevance, but my belief in the product itself is because I'd like to see as much and as detailed data as I can.
No, that makes sense. Next, we're moving on to Claximus. Okay, another question about pizzas. You flip pizzas and properties, but what is the biggest thing you think you could flip with your bare hands?
I could have expected a question like this from Plex. It's probably the desk I have here. I have a 3-meter long desk of hardwood with a steel frame.
Yep.
That's probably the biggest thing realistically I could flip. I'm a big guy, but I can't flip a car, so I think this is the closest thing.
It's not the sort of question people generally think about either, to be fair.
No.
Right, I think that was actually the last question. Yeah, unless you've got anything you would like to add or talk about before we go, I think we're pretty much done, mate.
I think we covered almost everything we could, and yeah, I really like these kind of conversations, and I'm always open that people know that about me to have cool conversations in the Discord channels that I'm in. And yeah, the last thing I would like to say is that I really think people should give things like, and not even only, but things like Metamaxis a try, because it can give your experience within Earth 2 a boost, knowing everything there is to know in a way that is user-friendly instead of the way Earth 2 itself sort of visualizes things most of the time. And it can help you grow profiles a lot. And there's a lot more tools like it that we have a lot of other products. I wouldn't even call them competition. I think they can exist at the same time for sure. But like Mihai, who does the scripting tools, that is amazing and has been of so much use to the community, and a lot of other people that work on E2 tools or E2 stats, etc. The guys at E2 News, all of this combined makes for the community as a whole, and not using all those things that we have at hand is such a waste. Yeah,
I'd agree. Yeah, there's tons of tools that I'm using, everybody else is using. It's certainly not just one area I'm going to. I'm using a bit from here and a bit from there and a bit, and it all adds to create a big picture of what we need to know. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Definitely.
Right. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And Mizer, thank you very much for being the guest.
Thank you.
Right, peace out. Have a good one.
Peace out.